Welcome to a Football Show Tuesday edition here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Paul Kuharsky. I am Braden Gall. We will discuss the Rueben Bain reporting over the weekend, which is not a surprise to the Titans or to many of us in the media. We'll discuss what it actually means for the Titans pick at number 4. Does it affect the way they evaluate this player? Does it affect the way other NFL teams evaluate this player? Does it affect their decision at number 4? So we'll get into that. Also, is the reporting around this story fair? I think we'll have some conversations about that, as well as what's the latest fallout from The Athletic and the New York Times as it relates to the Dianna, Russini, Mike Vrabel story that kind of continues to unfold. And we will start, of course, with remembering one of the kindest and nicest and most entertaining human beings that I've ever had a chance to be around in this godforsaken industry. Paul, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I am well. Thank you for asking. Happy to be here and talk some ball and some people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So a lot of stuff to get to today on the show. If you are coming to the draft party, Sinkers Beverages 5th annual charity draft event on Thursday evening, we are going to run out of spots. You guys have bought a lot of tickets. We have a limited number of tickets for that Thursday night. It's $40. There's going to be some really cool giveaways with some sort of like door prizes. We're going to have a contest. We're going to have a live stream show the entire time. All you can eat, all you can drink. ML Rose in East Nashville. We got the back patio. It's going to be a private event. So we got all kinds of great food and beverages. Going to be a ton of fun. And $40, every penny goes to the Our Kids Foundation that benefits the sexually abused children of Middle Tennessee. Cannot think of a better cause than to help some amazing people do amazing work to help our children. So please, if you want, come on out. Limited spots. So if you are one of those late Nashvillians who likes to get tickets late to events, which most of you in this city like to do, there's a chance that this thing might not have any availability. So please, if you want to go ahead and sign up. RSVP in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com, in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. RSVP to secure your spot. There will be payment availability, of course, later on down the road, either at the door or via email a little bit later. Saturday night, also spots filling up for this private Q&A with reporters, including the great Paul Kuharsky, Nick Suss, myself, Steve Cavendish, James Foster. There's going to be other folks there, some special guests. I've got some autographed merch from the Tennessee Titans to give away. So we're going to have some really cool door prizes. We got some new logo stuff from the Titans to give away as well. 5-flight or 4-flight, 4 or 5, we're not sure yet. Some high-end bourbon tastings that's going to happen there. All you can eat, all you can drink at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue right there off Briley Parkway, just 10 minutes from Nissan Stadium. $75. Again, every single penny goes to the Our Kids Foundation. We haven't even posted this on social one time, PK, and we are almost sold out. That means all of you listening to all of the shows are doing the purchasing, and those are the people we want to spend time with. So cannot wait to see all you guys out next Thursday and Saturday. RSVP right now, in crowd at Sinkers Beverages, in crowd at Sinkers Beverages. I'm going to let you go first, PK. I knew Mack. I was glad to have known him as much as I did. I did not know him nearly as much as the folks who are writing just the coolest and best and most interesting stories about this guy. I want to know from you, though. I want you to know what he sort of meant to you and what do you think he meant to the Titans organization and to the Titans community broadly.
Well, personally, he was a great resource for me when I had questions about things that I didn't understand. He was one of the first people I could go through that could talk me through something, X and OE that I didn't understand or needed a better handle on. He's also a great connector. Dan Pompey wrote, who knew him from Chicago, wrote that he had 3,800 contacts in his phone, and he connected me with numerous people that helped me out with stories, that helped out Midday 180 with guests for our show that made us a better show for sure. I did a story in 2018 that I linked in what I wrote about him, where I watched a training camp practice with him and just kind of ran through all the different things that he pointed me to over the course of one, 90-minute or 2-hour session, which I thought was pretty cool to kind of watch a practice through his eyes. He was absolute friend to everybody. And I think, probably in some ways kind of underrated, particularly during stretches when they were bad, and the last 4 years they were really bad. Maybe the most high profile promoter of the team. I mean, constantly on the shows on 104.5 The Game, the flagship radio station, constantly
1045 The Game. Okay. All right. I
104.5.
like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's good. I just blended it.
I knew there was consolidation in our media, PK, but I didn't know that.
I got ahead of myself there. 104.5 The Zone, all over their shows. You know, some people thought too much, and all over their own promotional stuff from in-house. The lead disciple, Paul, if you will, for the Titans, preaching, and particularly key for them with Mike Keith leaving in this last year for the University of Tennessee job. And they are now, without him, going to be in a real tough state with Taylor Zarzour taking over from Mike Keith just a year ago, and not on strong footing just because of the nature of having taken over for a 30-year guy. And now, looking for a successor in the Frank Wycheck, Dave MacInnis string of analysts to do all that those guys have done in their time. A real change of voice, and not something they need to add on top of all of the changes that they have going on.
So I don't, you and I can probably add some perspective and some color and some experiences and some anecdotes to the stuff that's already out there. But I kind of want to start. First of all, this is a guy, passed away, 74 years old on Monday. He was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals for a handful of years, 2000, 2003. Then he became the linebackers coach for the Tennessee Titans and from 2004 to 2011. He went off to coach other places. Then he came back and joined the Titans radio network in 2017 and has been around. To your point, I would seek him out at camp. And as someone who played football growing up in Texas, he and I would always have a common ground and stories to tell about high school football and high school programs and life in the state of Texas in terms of middle school and high school football. Quick to tell a story, quick to have a one-liner from his days in Texas. He always had some crazy thing to say about sticking your face in a briar patch or whatever. God knows. Mike Keith would look at him and just be like, what are you talking about sometimes? But standing with him at practice was one of my favorite parts of training camp, because you could watch offensive line drills and you could see, and he could talk you through the specifics of arms and hands and hips and feet. And he could say, well, no, I didn't like how he did that. And you could just, to your point about X's and O's, I think I learned more watching practice with Coach Mack than I think I did at any other point in my career around the stuff that happened on the field. And that is nothing to say about the stuff that he did off the field, where, again, just quick to share everything in his life. Quick to share a laugh, quick to share a story, quick to share wisdom, very kind and thoughtful. For me, PK, I drove by his house probably 5 or 6 or 7 times a week, almost every day. He lived in our neighborhood, and my kid's daycare was literally down the street from his home. And when the tornado hit, he was a huge part of the community and helping the people around that area that got affected, including like my family. Quick to wave. The Pompeo story told the deal about how he only bought Fords from this one guy in Missouri because he was loyal to that guy, because he met him so many years ago in his first stop as a coach, basically one of his first stops as a coach. And his Explorer was sitting right there in a very unassuming home in what is a very changing quickly neighborhood. And he's always just, quick to tell stories about coffee shops as much as he would be about TCU football or Texas high school football, or the way an offensive lineman didn't reach block properly. You know what I mean? And he would do it in a way that made everybody feel like they knew what was going on. Like, he didn't do it in a condescending football way. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people do that. So he will be missed. He was a huge asset to the community that he lived in, to the Titans community, and to the football community. And just super thankful that I had a chance to get to know him over the last 8 to 10 years. So
Ashley Farrell was part of the video production team for the Titans a long time. She's one of the many people that went with Mike Keith to UT. I'll put out the link near the end of the show here. She put together a great great compilation on Twitter. He's a horned frog, so he used to say frog a lot whenever a frog was in the highlights. So there's a lot of frog mixed into this, but also just some of his crazy sayings.
Yeah.
And so I'll hit the link on that in the comments near the end of the show, lest you all run away to watch it now.
So yeah, that's right. We'll stay here. Give us the clicks first, then go honor Coach Mack. A ton of nicknames, of course. I just knew him as Mack, which is like, I don't know. He just is such a one-name guy. And he and I would chat that frog thing all the time. For those that don't know, Texas A&M, they're little. You know how everybody in Texas has like a saying, right? Like hook 'em, or like whatever. Everybody's got a lot of college teams have that thing. Well, Texas A&M has a saying called gig 'em. And for those that do not know what gig 'em actually is, it is about going to kill frogs in the state of Texas. And he and I would always laugh about that. I'd walk up and he'd say frogs, and I'd tell him like I was a Texas guy, not a A&M guy, so we both make fun of A&M to some degree. But that's what gig 'em. That's where gig 'em comes from, is attacking frogs in the state of Texas. And so there's this healthy kind of like Texas thing, pride, but also respect and also hatred all at the same time. Great dude. And community is worse off for it. For those that don't know the Bears story, and I think you have probably known this for 25 years. Most NFL people know this story, but I think it kind of came to light in the Athletic story that Pompey wrote. But for those that don't know, one of his first NFL coaching jobs was for the Chicago Bears as a linebackers coach, with one of the best linebacking rooms of all time, right, in the 80s with all those guys for the Bears.
He was part of the replacement strategy for Buddy Ryan when Buddy Ryan got the Eagles job.
That's right.
And Buddy Ryan was the most popular assistant coach in the history of mankind.
So he had gone to the Cardinals like the year before, like in 1999, he had gone to the Cardinals, and the Bears job came open, and he was the most popular choice to come back and take the job to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And they had kind of been negotiating. Long story short, they'd been negotiating. The Bears call a press conference to announce that he's the head coach. They alert the media. They leak the story to everybody. And yet they had not signed the deal and got confirmation from Coach Mack that he was going to take the job. And that's the job he really wanted. But because it leaked and because it was out early and he didn't kind of trust and enjoy or like how the process went, that is one of the more remarkable stories, right? Like just in general, in terms of information and hiring. It got back to his bosses at Arizona. He didn't like that was upsetting people, and basically said, no, I don't feel comfortable taking the job. I'm not going to take the job, which I think speaks to his mindset a little bit for sure. And one of my favorite lines from Coach Mack all the time, which is in the story, basically, which he said it 1,000 times, but he's just like, well, I was a Chicago Bears coach for about 6 hours and I only knew about it for about 3. So just a great insight anecdote into sort of the guy he is. And we will miss you, buddy. And RIP, Coach Mack. Quick. It came quick. I don't know the last time you talked to him, but it was not long ago.
Well, I sent him a text after I heard that he was ill, and this goes back to at least late February.
Yeah,
he was not at the combine, which was one of his favorite things. So you knew something was serious then. But there were a lot of encouraging, there was a lot of encouraging talk that he had a long and slow rehab process ahead of him, but that he would be back. So things took a couple turns for the worst, obviously, along the way, and a sad ending, obviously.
Just goes without saying, squeeze the people that are in your life, take care of them, and enjoy all of our time on this godforsaken rock that we're all on. Okay, from like a tragedy, but also a gentleman that should be celebrated. To the continued fallout of this bizarro story between Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini, apparently photographer for hire, going out really, as you could tell by those photos in the original breaking of the New York Post story, that this was somebody that knew what was going on, went and got the information and then tried to sell it to a bunch of different people. The New York Post paid for it and ran it. But the initial reports, or the initial statement from the New York Times / The Athletic, was, we stand behind Dianna Russini. She'll continue to report. And then a couple days later, after one report basically, right, about the officials, now she's, I guess you're saying, they're not using the word suspended, PK, but she is not reporting on the NFL currently, as they are investigating. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a suspension to me. This is more now on the Athletic, I think, than it is on. Vrabel's not going to catch any heat on this because nobody cares because he's a great football coach. That's unfair, but it is what it is. Dianna doesn't look particularly great through this entire thing, as you've and I and everybody else have talked about. But now this is sort of like on the Athletic, and what sort of reporting standards do they claim to have? Do they claim to want to portray to the world? And what are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do about this behind closed doors?
Well, I think Vrabel's bosses should care, and I think the league should care. It's not a good look.
You think the guy who got in trouble for being in a massage parlor is going to care?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was thoroughly embarrassed by it, and I think it caused him some problems. And I don't think he's going to be particularly thrilled that his organization is experiencing another round of embarrassment over something of a similar or worse vein. I mean, I'm not saying there are huge consequences for him, but his credibility, of course, it's about winning games, and he won a lot of games, and so he's insulated on that, and it's way worse for her than it is for him. But there's an expectation that he is above board in his relationships with the press, and this certainly gives the appearance that he was not. As for her,
quickly, I'm only saying that tongue in cheek, of course. Like, hypocrisy is the coin of the realm. So of course, the guy who gets busted doing something in the same vein but worse, of course, he cares about how his underling and how it looks in his organization. I was in jest there, of course.
Yeah. Here's my biggest issue with what's gone on now. Twofold. First off, with the Athletic, which I think is the best sports writing outlet we have now, the best national sports writing outlet we have out there now. I think they supported her very hard, very quickly, probably too staunchly. I think they took the temperature, or they awaited until they saw what the temperature was of the general public before deciding that this warranted, that wasn't going to blow over, and that it warranted an investigation. And then Katie Robertson, their own staff writer, writes a story, and the lead of it is that they're investigating her, and they cite as the source of the fact that they're going to investigate her, according to a person familiar with the inquiry. Now, I just did a lecture over at Belmont where I teach media ethics, and I don't claim to be a know-all on this thing, but it's a topic that's near and dear to me increasingly as I teach this class and evolve on it. If your organization is reporting on itself, and an official can't be named to say that you're investigating yourself, according to a person familiar with the inquiry from inside your own building, is the weakest thing. Like, that's unbelievable to me. And more unbelievable to me is that, like, I'm probably the only person that gives a shit. Like, the public should not stand for that. We are so accepting of anonymous sources and things. Somebody in power at the Athletic has to say, yeah, we're investigating ourselves and Dianna on this. And I, a person in power, am saying that we're doing it according to somebody familiar with it in our own building. It's ridiculous. And then you have other mainstream people like Dave Portnoy saying, like, yeah, she may not be able to come back from this, but it's not really that big a deal. Now, I'm not claiming to know what happened. I mean, certainly the evidence points in a certain direction, but we didn't see it. We didn't witness it.
The New York Post story was written by lawyers for that exact reason.
Yeah. But, there are a lot of arrows pointing very strongly in one direction here. And that so many people who are quote unquote media. Now, Portnoy is certainly a different kind of media, but that he thinks, and certainly there is a basket of this where, adults doing adult things is not a public matter until it affects your work. And this certainly has a bearing if it has happened as the presumption suggests, has a bearing on her work, gives her an unfair advantage, has him not treating the media. He doesn't have to treat everybody on equal footing, but he has to treat them on more equal footing than it appears that he's done. And that's a concern. And to be so blasé and nonchalant about it to a giant audience that considers you a journalist, Portnoy, is disturbing and shows just how far off we are from considering things properly.
This is going to come off very like media ivory tower, holier than thou, down your nose, but like the general conversation is focused on the wrong things, and I know why that happens. The salacious details are this is not Dave's point, but I'll make the point, and I've said it on the show with Nick. Like the details of their actual intimate relationship are irrelevant to the story. How far they did or didn't go, or are going or not going, is irrelevant to the story. The story is how their closeness, whatever that may mean, affected the information she was distributing to her audience.
Absolutely.
And that is the thing that, and of course, one is amplified because we love the salacious details as a society, and the other is not because we don't care how the sausage is made. Now, I think personally on a local level, a lot of coverage locally was pretty smart about this. I mean, again, Stillman was playing the sounder on his show. Like this is not a new thing. We knew that when she reported something, it was largely coming from him. And I kind of always just considered the source on that. And that's easy for me to do because I'm kind of trained to see the stuff and kind of see the writing between the wall or on the wall, and as are you. And so I think the question is, is there unethical reporting in all of this? It seems like there was. And if you're the Times / The Athletic, you kind of have to take a stand on that stuff. And that's why I thought it was interesting that they came out so strongly right away and said, no, we're standing by her. It's like, you didn't even have time to investigate this, did you? And so I don't know what it makes of it. I think it's going to be hard for her to come back in general, but not for the reasons people think, right? People are going to think she's not coming back because she had an affair. It's like, no, she's not. If she doesn't come back for whatever reason, it's going to be because the editors of a really important publication don't trust the information she's getting, right? Like that's the difference.
Yeah, don't trust the way she's getting the information, I think is the important thing here. And look, but 2 points. This hurts all women in this role. Too many people presume this is going on regularly. Yeah. It's not as common as people think. I always give benefit of the doubt to people in these situations, and I hurt for all the women that now face, oh, this is how you operate, when the vast majority of people don't operate this way. And they're now tainted by the presumption of what's gone on here. And the other thing is, like, her comment was, sources and media people get together away from news places all the time. Well, you might have a beer at a bar or something. I've never been at a hotel an hour and a half away from a place of business with the source.
Yeah.
And this wasn't Tom Pelissero or Adam Schefter or Albert Breer. And do we think that Albert Breer's been to a romantic kind of hotel with Mike Vrabel for a day of frolicking with friends, even if their story is true? I don't believe that's the case.
So
it's a shaky story to me. And if these other people were with them, none of them have stepped up to say so.
Yeah, and the problem is, and people are saying in the comments, like, Vrabel should be slandered as much as this. This is about preserving media integrity. I agree with all of that. I just don't know, like, Vrabel, if you're Vrabel, the motivations are clear. Like, if it's personal, then like that's between him and his family and his wife and whatever. Like, that's not my business. Like, people make those mistakes and cheat on their spouses all the time. Like, that's not a thing I care about. But from a information control standpoint, this is what Vrabel wants. Like, Vrabel or any coach or any general manager or any agent, they want control over the flow of information. So it's not like I don't understand the motivations. The other stuff in your personal life, that's up to you, and I don't really give a shit. Like, it's not my business. I don't care. I care about, of course, the effect on reporting, but that sort of is what it is. I will say, like, being in Mobile one time 2 years ago, I'm seeing Ian Rappaport and the Titans coaching staff walk around at 12:30 in the morning. Like, it's not socializing, unfortunately. The combine is a lot of just socializing. Right?
There's a picture of her having a beer with him in Indianapolis.
Right.
That everybody's having
Right.
a beer with everybody in Indianapolis. There's nothing untoward about that. But here's the question. If she survives this or resurfaces somewhere else, if she's at your training camp and she gets the kind of time that most national reporters get with a coach alone, or, even if it's on the sideline, if she's in Green Bay and she's standing over there talking to Matt LaFleur, and the beat is seeing her standing over there talking to Matt LaFleur, people are now taking pictures of that and tweeting it out. Oh, there's Dianna Russini talking to Matt LaFleur. Wonder what they're talking about. Wonder what kind of plans they're making. Now Matt LaFleur's in a somewhat uncomfortable situation. Does Matt LaFleur grant her that time? And it's a distraction that it previously wasn't, and it creates, I think, an uncomfortable situation that previously doesn't exist.
Yep.
And that's part of what she's done to herself.
Yep. It's a bummer. And I think ultimately, and this also sounds ivory towerish as well, but like ultimately, if society, the public, the readers, the fans, the audience, whatever you want to call it, if they had time and or cared more about like how they get all their information, I think many of you do, and that's why you probably listen to this show. I think most of people do not. In fact, I did an entire radio show about this on 104.5, and you were upset with me for it because I was like, "What do you all want as audience members? Like, what do you want? Do you want us to tell you the reality of what's happening, or do you want us to give you state-run content and make you happy and make you feel good with a dopamine hit? Like, what do you want?" And I think a lot of people don't realize that they just want the simple, easy, salacious thing that gets them through into the next scroll. And I know that's going to sound holier than thou, and I realize it, and it is what it is. But it's
I was upset because I feed people their broccoli.
That's right.
Right. That's my thing is I'm giving you what you
should eat.
Yeah.
What you should eat. All right. Speaking of eating, we're going to have 2 great nights of food and bevies at ML Rose on Thursday night, April 23rd, first round of the draft. Live show. Stillman's going to be broadcasting. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got giveaways. We got a contest. We got all you can eat, all you can drink at ML Rose in East Nashville. Every penny of this will go to of course, support Our Kids Foundation. Saturday night, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. So we're going to have lots of really good food, lots of good beverages, lots of good stories, that off-the-record Q&A on Saturday night, worth the price of admission. We're going to have some cool merch, some giveaways. We're going to have some gift bags. We're going to have 4-flight bourbon tasting, all you can eat, all you can drink. It's going to be a ton of fun. So make sure you RSVP if you want a spot. They are limited. RSVP to the email. Shoot us an email, incrowd, INCROWD @sinkersbeverages.com. Give them your name and what day you're coming and how many people are coming, and we'll secure your spot. They are limited and they will fill up. They're moving fast this year, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for that. Okay, so let's get to the story surrounding Rueben Bain. This was originally reported by the Read Optional. Documents obtained by the Read Optional. I'm going to read the headline from ESPN. Report: Bain involved in 2024 accident in which person later died. This was a car accident in March of 2024. 4 a.m. local time. Rueben Bain and 3 other people are driving a 2021 Land Rover. The story is, according to the reports, he rear ends another vehicle, bounces around on the interstate on the retaining walls. Unfortunately, a 22-year-old woman does not have her seatbelt on, and she basically, dies at the scene, but not officially. She is incapacitated. They take her to the hospital. She's in a coma for 3 months. She passes away in June, a few months later. He was cited at the time with careless driving, not given a field sobriety test, and then later on, the charges are dropped, and the family is sort of, outwardly at least, the family is saying, we're putting this issue to bed. We're trying to deal with our issues here, this tragedy, and kind of wish him the best. There are some sort of, I want to say, mysterious social media posts that have been floating around over the last 6 months. This is absolutely not new information to the Tennessee Titans or to the NFL writ large. They have had this information for a while. There was another incident in October of 2025 where he was not cited, but there was an incident. These are young athletes driving cars purchased by collectives and dealerships. I think it was owned by what was the name of the company? Miami Sports 27 owned this Land Rover. And so ultimately the question is, like, does this even affect his draft stock at all? We'll talk about the actual reporting about this in a second, but if the Tennessee Titans knew about all of this, it shouldn't really change how they view him on their big board. Or does the public perception change how the team should view this player? How should we go about analyzing what this actually means to the evaluation of the prospect?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fascinating question to a degree. Is Ruben Bane a good guy who is a bad driver, who's got a lead foot or a bad aim or, a propensity for dangerous accidents? Or is it illustrative of some kind of character flaw? Now I reached out to somebody this morning who's very good, two people, two good NFL scouting sources. One's team is not in range of Bain, and he had done no work on Bain, so he had no knowledge. Another said, his team's been fully aware of this throughout. And I asked him if he thought it would have a bearing, if he thought it's had a bearing on how Bain will be on boards. And he said, probably not. Now, the follow-up question I asked him was is this a relatively good guy with a driving problem? And I haven't heard back from him on that. But I think that's what's being measured. Robert Saleh at the owners meeting talked about character guys, and he doesn't want them. So is Rueben Bain a character issue guy? Have there been any hints? You would know this way better than I. Have there been any character hints about Rueben Bain in a locker room, on the field, around a team? Or has he been assessed as a good dude to have on your team? And this are, you wish it was at least one incident, a couple incidents separate of that where he didn't know how to handle a Range Rover, and is bad at being a kid with a car.
So this is Deuce's comment here. This is a case of a low-level journalist looking for clicks. We'll get to that part of this in a second because that drives me crazy. I think that, so look, I have said on this show for months that there's some teams that might take him off their boards. And if I knew about this kind of stuff in October, then everybody did in the NFL as well, which means the evaluation of him already has all of this baked in.
Yeah. And even Gall was saying this throughout, and he knew more specifics than I did. I knew there was
something,
and I'm not reporting it on the same level. I'm not into draft on the same level, but I was told, like, hey, we're still kind of by some people still looking into Bain, still something about Bain. So even I, at a lower level, knew that there was some, further investigation of Bain, some additional level of research on Bain, something like that. So this was out there,
I feel very comfortable saying the Tennessee Titans have known about this from the beginning. And in which case, if they have evaluated him as the number 4 best player on their board, it's already baked in. If they've evaluated him as the number 12 best player on their board, it's already baked in. So I don't necessarily think it affects the draft situation. It does affect the perception of the draft situation, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, and did it affect him being 12?
Sure. Or that's right. That's exactly right. Because we have, and this is what's really unusual about this, the Tennessee Titans have as good a case study into this exact thing and that exact question that you are asking as any other team in the NFL. Because what you are asking is, was this a decent young person who made a stupid mistake that ended in tragedy? Or is this a pattern of behavior that indicates this is a problem in the locker room moving forward? Whether it's maturity or stupidity or whatever you want to call it. Jeffrey Simmons had one of the worst incidents you could imagine coming out of high school as a senior in high school. and was suspended for 1 game at Mississippi State his freshman year, I believe, which we can laugh about now in hindsight because that's a terrible punishment for what he did. But was it a young person doing something stupid that he should be penalized for and then learns from it and is a good guy who doesn't make any mistakes the rest of his career? Or is this a person who's going to continue this behavior? And that's ultimately the question.
Did knock him down. He's not 19th pick in the draft. And that's what made him intriguing. Like, how far does it knock him down? Because he's probably top 6 pick, right?
I think the ACL did more. This is what's ironic about the story. I think the ACL did more to knock him down than the incident did. I think Simmons was, and let's be very clear about this, I think Simmons grades out as a prospect far higher than Rueben Bain. Jeffrey Simmons was as good a defensive prospect in high school and college and in the draft. And if not for the ACL, I think he's picked in the top 10. So I don't know about that. That is ultimately what they have to discuss. And they have already settled on this. Now, I think, I've said this now for a couple of weeks, I think the coaching staff, if you had to guess which one is higher on Rueben Bain, I think the coaching staff of the Titans is higher on Rueben Bain than the front office. I think he's a good player who makes the team better. But I think the real questions about him are arm length. Does he slide inside? Can he play outside pass rusher? How long can he play outside pass rusher? Is he worth it at 4? And if you look at the board, his consensus ranking right now is 8th. Mel Kiper has him at 15th. Dane Brugler has him as 9th. Matt Miller has him 13th. Todd McShay has him 8th. I'm not saying those are the right guys to listen to, but like by and large, he is not viewed as a top 10 prospect. And all of this story was already baked into that. And I think the reason he's not a top 5 prospect has nothing to do with the car accident. I think it has everything to do with what position do you play and your arms and like that stuff.
Let's get to, a lot of people are kind of asking about it not being reported as if people were sitting on it or ignoring it. I don't think that's the case at all. I think people couldn't nail it down. People hear that something's up, but with a college prospect, you don't know. First off, you don't know exactly what it is. So you don't know what you're looking for. You know, there's something that's very, very vague, right? You're trying to get a team to give you some hints, and they're unwilling to do so. The agent certainly is trying like hell to keep it quiet, right? But if I've got a tip that something's up with Ruben Bane, all right, I presume there's some kind of criminal thing. There are a bunch of counties in Florida where it could have happened. I don't know where Rueben Bain's from. It could have been at home. I suppose if I dedicated, a week to being on the Rueben Bain beat, and this should come from a Miami University reporter, as opposed to or a draft reporter. But you're starting from nowhere. It's a little bit of a needle in a haystack thing. Right. That's where you start to look. And county by county, court records are very difficult. Some counties, you just put in a guy's name, and if there's a record of something, it comes up. Other counties, there are 6 different clerk's offices for misdemeanors and felonies and Class A and Class B. Believe me, I have a lot of experience with this with Pac-Man Jones. And Pac-Man Jones' route from Nashville to Atlanta, I had, pretty much a map. And this county was great. And this next county was impossible.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy to go find it. Now, I will ask Braden, because who broke it, and it seemed like they broke it in a tweet. I mean, that's insane if you have this story not to write a story.
Well, no, he wrote a long story about it on his Substack, which is, again, you can call that low-level journalism if you want to, but
low-level journalism. Not at all. Big news story about a top draft.
Yes, Heather Cox Richardson is like the #1 biggest Substack in the world, and it is she has an enormous audience. So I do find this to be the interesting stuff, though, because it is not character. What happened to Laramie Tunsil was character assassination because of how it unfolded.
And the timing.
The timing of it being leaked during the draft on his own account that is clearly a story that had not yet necessarily gotten out. Oh, college kids smoke weed. Oh, my God. Huge story. But like how it happened and how it unfolded was deliberate by a party that felt wronged to try to execute in the moment, costing him money. This is a reporter doing his job, because if there is a story like this about a player who's about to get drafted, I don't understand. I understand the Miami fans in the comment section saying like, oh, this is just you trying to get your rocks off and get a clicks. And it's like, I don't understand why this is not relevant information, which leads me to this question here, which is, so the league was just hoping, this is from Cam Sail Away. So what the league was hoping for was to just get through the draft and not have to answer these questions about Bane. Number one, the league doesn't care. It's not the league's job.
He's not answering any questions.
The league has no obligation to care about this or answer questions. This is about the player and about whatever team drafts him. And ultimately, this is what I think is really interesting, PK. So I want to hear what you have to say, because I don't care if players smoke weed, for example. What I do care about is if you know you're about to get drug tested at the combine. This is more of a past question. But if you smoked weed in college and then know for a fact during the biggest job interview of your life that you're going to get tested, why are you incapable of just waiting 2 months? Like, do the job to pass the test. Get it, even if you think the test is stupid, which I do. It doesn't matter. You've told these are the rules to get a job in the NFL. You got to follow the rules. I'm more concerned with the fact that you couldn't just stop.
And your agent's spelling out for you.
Exactly.
This is how long you have to be off to do fine at the test.
That's right. And so other people on the Titans beat knew about this too, especially near the end, and everyone knew this story was going to come out. And so ultimately, one of the more interesting things I would ask Ruben Bane if I am the Titans sitting in an interview with him is, all right, like, we know this happened. You know this happened. Why aren't you sort of meeting it head on? Wouldn't it benefit you and your agent to hold a press conference back in January and say, this is a thing that happened, this is a part of it, or like, it's going to come out at some point. You had to know it's going to come out. If every NFL team knows it's going to come out, then like that's more of my question is like, isn't the PR strategy smarter to just meet it head on, talk about that it happened, and then move on to the next news cycle? Like, isn't that a better way to do it? I don't know
about holding a press conference. And listen, nobody wants people to be square with the information more than me, but I would imagine going into 30 meetings, certainly, but maybe going into combine meetings. I don't know if I offer it up, but I'm certainly ready for people who ask me about it. You know, I am prepped and ready to go on that. You can't be surprised by something like that at all. You have to know that they know everything. That one guy I talked to, who said probably not on Sinking on the Board, said, we knew all about it. And I would imagine all but the very worst teams at scouting knew all about it. He said, by the way, it'll result ultimately in a civil action.
Right. There are some mysterious social posts out there from people close to the woman who passed away that are not happy about how this is unfolded. The statements from the family are saying we wish him luck, and so we just don't know exactly what's going on. And this is to this question, which is from Real Deuce. if it's not the fact that the reporter wrote the article, it's that he dropped the article a week before the draft. Everybody has known this for over a year, but he had to get police reports. PK just kind of explained all of this. You have to get confirmation. You can't just like write the story a year ago. So I think the timing is, I don't think this is character assassination at all.
I'm confident that, and Braden is as well, both for our own independent reasons, that teams knew it. So This isn't like the Laramie Tunsil thing where you say, oh, look at this guy's incredibly poor judgment.
In the middle of the draft.
Good judgment, but they're aware of it well ahead of the fact.
Right. And again, like if I'm sitting in the meeting with the Titans and I know already, and I'm interviewing Rueben Bain, I would ask him about the incident. He would have a prepared response for that, which you would hope. But like one of my follow-up questions would be like, what's your plan for addressing this with the community?
With the media.
With the media. Like you're going to have to address it. So that's kind of my more question is like, what should have been the strategy around this? If you're the player and the agent, should you have gotten out in front of it? If you're being asked about it in every single meeting, it's going to come out at some point. Now,
the one PR strategy I will say, to Braden's point about earlier press conferences, if this had come up before the combine, say, and he had addressed it there, then it would not be the first question that
Right.
he's going to address when he's, probably a first round pick. So he's a first round pick. He's on a conference call with that team's media on Thursday night. He's on that team's property on Friday. There are going to be 2 stories written about him by every outlet. One of those stories is going to be about this. He could have gotten that over with early. There's some PR strategy.
And again, I'm not even saying you don't do it on friendly territory, right? Like, I think you wait till after the combine, so you're not being asked about a really sensitive topic by a bunch of bloggers at the combine. But maybe you do it with a Miami press corps down in Miami on campus, and you do it after the combine, but before you're close enough to the draft to let all the information get out. And so you can play a home game. You
can say I've addressed it.
Yeah, you can play a home game, answer the questions, and it's not like the local media won't ask the right questions. They will. But they probably go a little bit more delicate on the situation.
And it's not as big a swarm.
That's right. And so I just, that's more my, like, man, I feel like the right PR strategy in all of life is almost always to just meet it head on, say the thing, say what happened, tell the truth, promise you're going to do better, and then go out and do that. And that's generally almost like, that's literally the Tylenol example in PR 101 classes in college. So
Joe Blacko says he should just sit down with Russini.
We're not there yet. We're not. It's too soon. It's too soon. That's too soon. Too soon on both parts of the joke, Joe. Although I appreciate you connecting 1 and 1. So what's really interesting is, like, again, what does this do to the 4th pick? And I said this with James Foster. I'm saying it with Suss. I think I'm saying it with you as well last week. Maybe I don't remember when I started this. I do feel like Carnell Tate is much more of an option for this team. I think Rueben Bain is viewed before all of this information, or including this information, as more of a like 7 to 12 player in the draft.
You take Tate over Bain at 4?
The problem with that feeling is that I don't know that Carnell Tate is automatically a better player than Ruben Bane. I think they are both kind of equal quality of their position. And I think they're both really good players that make your team better. It feels a lot like Corey Davis for me, taking Carnell Tate. I think Carnell Tate's probably a better prospect than Corey Davis, but it feels a little bit like that. And I think Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles, if you are taking the best player available, I do not know how you can rank Ruben Bane or Carnell Tate ahead of Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles horizontally on your board. I don't know how you do that. It doesn't mean you have to take those two, but I don't know how, if you're claiming best available, I don't know how you put Tate and Bane ahead. And that's not even based on, that has nothing to do with car accidents.
I think if Reese and Bailey are gone, you're forced to go to one of the positions that's not as valuable. And I think in that case, I'd be hard pressed for it not to be Love.
There's part of me that you get these feelings about this stuff, and Jeremiah Love was the thing that I felt coming out of the combine. And I do think Jeremiah Love makes Cam Ward's job better. He automatically makes his job easier. And actually, one of the things I floated with James on Hot Read last week was I could see this team going like wide receiver, guard, or going Jeremiah Love, guard, wide receiver. And if you go Jeremiah Love, Emmanuel Pregnon, and then a receiver, Ted Hurst, or even if you go running back, receiver, center, right? Sam Hecht is your starting center with the 66 pick. I could see them going offense, and trying to do as much to help Cam Ward as possible in the first year, knowing that you're going to have a hole at edge at some point that you have to fill next year. I could just see them doing that because helping Cam Ward seems like the smartest strategy right now.
I just think Saleh would be so frustrated knowing how close they are, just one piece away from being able to rush 4. They don't want to blitz. It's not their nature. And if they just had that one last piece, I just find it really hard to imagine them not hitting that spot. Maybe I'm way off.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you, but you're going to have to give up on one position or the other.
I agree. But Jake Martin, I mean, they would have to have a lot of faith in Jake Martin.
I do think that Ruben Bain starts right away at the wide 9 and is a very versatile piece that moves around the defensive line. And I've said this from the beginning, would make them a better football team. And if you give me Jermaine Johnson and Rueben Bain and Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers, you've got a hell of a starting four right out of the gate.
And I do think, though, with Bain, it's not as much wide 9 as it is wide 7.
That's right. And because I don't know how long he stays there. And ultimately, the reason he's viewed as the 8th or 9th or 10th best overall prospect in this draft and not 2, 3, and 4, ahead of Arvell Reese, who's never played the position really, and ahead of Bailey, who has trouble stopping the run. The reason he's not clearly the best player at that position ahead of those two is that people don't know exactly where he's going to play. And that's a legitimate question. And that's more of the issue for the entire NFL. I think it works I think he plays right away for the Titans and can play that outside role right away. I just don't know where they're at in 2 years or 3 years.
So. Don't you think, now we're kind of off the rails a little bit, but don't you think Saleh, I could totally see Saleh looking at him and saying, man, I could do some things.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the front office is a little bit more hesitant. That's my thought. Again, are any of these guys graded as the number 4 pick in the draft? Really, it's Love and Styles are the only two that are sort of worthy of that pick, but that's not relevant because you have to pick somebody. You got to pick somebody. Corey. Actually, you have some Corey Davis. You had a good Corey Davis story up on the website, which I think is very relevant to this pick at 4, because if you take Rueben Bain, you may be taking a player who's 7 or 8 spots ahead of where he should get picked, but not a real major reach. And the lessons from the Corey Davis is that a lot of the scouting department didn't. They didn't expect Corey Davis to go right there, but John Robinson picked him anyway.
Yeah, and out of that, Blake Bedingfield went on to say, about Tate, just that the things that make a number 1 are really yak. Really, you're what you can do with the ball in your hands after the catch, and that Tate's limitations there that you don't really grow that much in that area. And that, he doesn't project him as a 1 either. And so as eager as I am for them to address wide receiver, and as much as I want them to draft one if not in the 2nd, in the 3rd, you got to draft one higher in the 4th. I think you got to show more ambition over last year. It's got to be somebody who run with the ball in his hands. And I like Tate a lot. I mean, if you were drafting Tate in the 2nd,
right. That's right.
It's great, but at 4 or at 8 or at 12, it's not enough.
This is what ultimately maybe the simplest way to explain this. Carnell Tate's probably a really good number 2 receiver. Rueben Bain's probably a really great number 2 pass rusher. Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles are really good number 1s at their position.
And you just drafted a number 2 pass rusher last year.
Yeah.
And you just drafted 2 guys who, maybe could be number 2 wide receivers. It's time to front.
That's right.
Front those guys.
And it's why I think corner is the one that gets pushed way down the board right now. I think corner is going to be the guy they draft depth-wise. I think they've got to get an offensive lineman. They've got to get a playmaker, probably a receiver, and they need to try to get an edge rusher. And again, this is why trading back to 7, 8, 9 is so ideal, because if Bain's available, great pick at that point. If Tate's available, pretty solid pick at that point. If Love falls to you, which is possible, you could take him there. Styles could fall to you. Caleb Downs could fall to you. You don't want to go past 11 or 12, but if you go back a few spots, you can still get the same quality of player and probably add your offensive lineman in the 3rd round.
Give me an edge, give me an offensive lineman, give me a receiver in the first 3 picks. Now, too many people do this thing.
Probably.
Let's just comment on this. They say, this position, this round, this position, this round, this position, this round. You can't prescribe that ahead of time, not knowing what's happening. Right. You can't even do it now in the 1st round, not knowing for sure. It seems like Reese is a shoo-in, but we're not positive what's happening with Bailey ahead of the Titans.
I think right now the betting markets will tell you that it's Mendoza, Reese, Bailey in some order, and that you have to plan for that to be what happens. And so if that's the case, to me, it then becomes position of need versus best available. That's it. Bain and Tate fill the position of need, maybe not as graded highly, non-premium positions at linebacker and running back, but you're getting an elite starter probably right away. And so you got to decide. I could see Robert Saleh looking at Sonny Styles and being like, that guy's generational. I could see that also, putting him next to Cedric Gray and just being like, let's go. Because he can also, that's the other thing about Styles, he can blitz. So he can create some of that pass rush, even though we know Saleh and company don't want to do that much.
Yeah.
So,
and maybe they'll be doing it earlier if they don't fulfill that spot. But
trade to 7 and take the same guy if you can. Just, I don't know if it's possible, but that's still by far the best way to do this. So we shall see. We shall see. What else you got coming up on PK.com?
Well, if people haven't seen it, Blake Bedingfield did a really thorough rundown of everything that's gone wrong on the offensive line since Jack Conklin didn't get his 5th-year option and since they drafted Isaiah Wilson. So I'd encourage you to come look back on that. And coming up, Mike Herndon, usually 2 of his best pieces of the year, his guys on offense, I think is coming first. That'll be up by the end of the week, and then his guys on defense. And I'm gonna forget what's coming from. That's how much stuff we have coming.
Way to go, PaulKuharsky.com, everybody. Something will be up.
Something from something filmy from
okay.
Drew Beatty. And I think I'm going to look at this Rueben Bain thing a little bit more. So stay tuned and come on over.
Yep. PaulKuharsky.com. Sinkers Beverages. Email incrowd@sinkersbeverages.com to RSVP for your slot on Thursday night at ML Rose or Saturday night at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Every penny goes to charity. $40 for Thursday, $75. It will be absolutely totally worth the price of admission, and it's all for kids. So chip in a few bucks for some kids, please, people. At Sinkers Beverages, of course, you can get all those great, wonderful local craft retail beers. East Nashville Beer Works, Tennessee Brew Works. You can get Yazoo there as well. 3 great places. We're going to be watching the Atlanta-Nashville SC match on Saturday night. This Saturday night, out at East Nashville Beer Works. You're going to have $1 off drafts, a lot of cool stuff. So come hang out and watch the match with us on Saturday evening. This is a good question here from Richard. I'll end on this. Any shot they take the Louisville wide receiver by trading back in the second round? I think there's a real chance they take Chris Bell at number 35, because if he doesn't have the ACL tear, he is a first-round receiver. That's not a 500-yard weapon. That's a guy you think could be a number 1 for you down the road. So I think Chris Bell could be absolutely on the board for them at 35. And part of the reason you might love the Bain pick early, or Bailey if he's available, is that it does give you the freedom at 35 to go offensive line, to go receiver, to go corner if you need to. You can kind of take best available at 35. Same if you take Jeremiah Love. If you take Jeremiah Love at 4 or Styles, you can come back at 35. You can get an edge. You can get a receiver. You can get an offensive lineman. There will be a good one of them available, certainly offensive line and receiver. So we'll see.
I love Bell. I hate giving up, maybe some games at the beginning of his rookie year and then having that be an ACL recovery year where you're probably not getting the best version of him. So you're giving up to some degree a portion of a fifth of his fourth of his contract.
And this is going to be weird, but see if tell me if this makes sense. If you take Bain or Bailey or an edge at 4, I think it actually gives you more freedom to trade down at 35, because if you don't take the edge at 4, you probably need to take one at 35, whether that's R. Mason Thomas, whether that's somebody who falls out of the first round, whether that's Zion Young,
Malachi
Lawrence, whoever.
What do you think about drafting a 25-year-old edge?
Again, like I'd rather have Ruben Bane, I guess, but there's part of me that really could see them going Love, guard, receiver at 4, 35, and 66, and just saying to Cam Ward, we're going to give you as much as we can to help you, and just passing on edge until you can get an elite one next year, because I just don't know if they view Ruben Bane as an elite prospect. I just don't know if they do.
We're always waiting on something. Always.
Well, that's the nature of the game, right? That's the nature of the draft.
That's the nature of the Titans game.
I think with their free agency work, with Ridley back and Wan'Dale Robinson, I don't think you have to take a receiver at 4. With the corners that they signed, I don't think you need to go corner with either of your first 2 picks. The fact that they didn't get the offensive line fixed means you probably need one in their first 66, at least by 101. And it does give you a little bit of freedom to decide to push on receiver and push on corner and come back next year. So if that's Ruben Bane and a guard and you want to fix the trenches with your first 2 or 3 picks, that's fine too. There's a lot of good strategies here for the Titans. So you just got to pick the right players. That's all.
That.
just the right players.
It's been
All right.
that simple for all these years of this
That's right.
last 4 years of glory.
That's right. And then every now and then the general manager just takes a player that no one knew that anyone liked. And then you end up with Corey Davis, who, by the way, really good dude, really good, decent college player, not a great NFL player, not the 5th overall pick in the draft.
I had some moments.
Is what it is.
Should have had 1,000 yards that year, and then he disappeared with, what was it, a hip? All of a sudden he was on the sideline.
Was he really? Didn't he have really good? Was it against the Colts that he was really good, or the Jaguar? Wasn't he really good against one division foe? And wasn't very good against anybody. Wasn't very good against anybody else.
My memory for these things is poor.
I'll have to double check that. All right. PaulKuharsky.com, Sinkers Beverages for our draft party. Good local tap rooms if you're going to go have a beer. And other than that, share the show. Thumbs up, notifications turned on. Thank you guys for being involved. And in the comment section, Nick and I will be back on Thursday a little bit later because there's a press conference on Thursday where we get to talk to Borgonzi about the draft. Kind of the last chance we get to talk to him. So we'll be a little bit later on Thursday, so not the normal time. But Nick Suss and I will be back on Thursday. Hot Read podcast on Friday. Paul Kuharsky podcast as well. So check out all the great shows across the 440 Sports Network. For PK, I'm Braden Gall. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.